Okay, guys, so here we will be doing in this thing, I guess I'm calling it Project Original Prankster. We will be doing the Journey to the West, or the Tale of the Monkey King. Probably some of you know it as. And I'm going to note right out of the gate, this is translated by Julia Lavelle. And from what I gather from reading the foreword and stuff, this isn't exactly like a super literal, and I don't want to say faithful, but fastidious, or like a ditto paper carbon copy kind of thing. They have taken some liberties. You know how you've done it when you're reading the Lord of the Rings books and them dwarves start singing a bunch of songs. I mean, maybe you skip over one, or maybe. Well, they kind of do that. Apparently in the old book, that happens. Because this story itself is written by somebody. It's attested to somebody called Wu Chang'an. And it's like 400 or 500 year old or something. It was one of the original novels. So, there's that. Alright, it is a very old story. It's where we get Dragon Ball Z from. Basically, a whole big pile of kung fu movies. Just being familiar with this material will help you out with navigating so much pop culture and things, especially from China and Japan, especially. Because this book, other books like it, they're a big deal. They're wild. Just intent. They're awesome stories. So we'll be able to. You'll have my lifelong obsession with all things from over in that sphere of, the kung fu and mysticism and all that, Taoist alchemy. So I'll be here along to help you through it, because even though things have been simplified by this Lavelle lady, I suppose the Lavelle person, I suppose that even though some things have been simplified, because I've read ahead some in this, that some things have been simplified, but still there's some stuff here, and it's intense. It's intense. The knowledge that you kind of need to go in this a little bit sometimes. We're going to see how it goes, though. All right. Oh yeah. That what I was talking about. How knowing about this would help us navigate so much stuff. Like the Forbidden Kingdom movie. It was weird, like, why is this random kid from Brooklyn or New York or wherever he was from, why is this random kid Jason Tripithecus getting transportificated to this mythical land? Well, if you're familiar with the story, you find out there's this monk named Tripitaka. Tripithecus, Tripitaka. Tripitaka. There's a connection there. So maybe back in time they were reincarnated. I don't know. But, if I had grown up, if it had been part of my education, then I would have just known. And it would have been an interesting story, interesting to see Monkey do the things that he does and fight some of the people that he does and things. Okay. And also, I think maybe it's important to note early on maybe about the philosophy of like this Taoisto religion. Maybe that this story is sort of part of a manifesto or materials that were kind of like a corpus of junk to help underpin and solidify, concrete the amalgamation of like Hinduism and Buddhism and Taoism, all that stuff, all to make things work, and have the great times that they had back then. Okay, without further ado, like, this is an important story for the whole world, important story for my life. And to me, it's got wonderful things about self-improvement and introspection, mindfulness, and I said self-improvement and redemption. I think there's redemption. There's things about redemption in here, if I'm not mistaken. But all right, here we go. Chapter 1. After Pangu created the universe by separating earth and sky with his mighty axe, the world was divided into 4 continents. In the north, south, east, and west. Our story takes place in the east. By a great ocean lay a land called Aulai, within which was a mountain called Flower Fruit, home to sundry immortals. What a mountain it was! Of crimson ridges and strange boulders, phoenixes and unicorns, evergreen grasses and immortal peaches. And on its peak sat a divine stone, 36.5 feet high, 24 in circumference. Since creation, this rock had been nourished by heaven and earth, the sun and the moon, until it was divinely inspired with an immortal embryo, and one day gave birth to a stone egg, about as large as a ball. After exposure to the air, it turned into a stone monkey with perfectly sculpted features and limbs. This monkey learned to climb and run, then bowed in all four directions of the compass. 2 golden rays shone from his eyes all the way to the palace of the pole star, startling the benevolent sage of heaven, the Jade Emperor, while he sat on his throne in the hall of divine mists, surrounded by his immortal ministers. The Emperor ordered 2 of his generals, 1,000 Mile Eye and Follower the Wind Ear, to look out of the south gate of heaven and locate the source of this light. Your humble servants, they soon reported back, have traced it back to Flower Fruit Mountain in the small country of Aulai on the eastern continent, where a rock has given birth to an egg, which is turned into a stone monkey, whose golden eyes have dazzled even your majesty. But now the monkey has paused for some refreshment, and the blaze is dimmed. The creatures of the mortal world are all born from heaven and earth, the Jade Emperor remarked tolerantly. Nothing they do can surprise us. The monkey gamboled over the mountains. That's gamboled. Gamboled. So I guess that's kind of like bebopping, but like slower. You're not loping, but like, yeah. Anyway, and also this Jade, if you're not, maybe I shouldn't pause and start doing so much of this stuff and let you guys love the story, but they really believe, like, back then they had this whole thing that the emperor had an emperor, because like also, because not always was China ruled by one emperor, and it wasn't always even China, and the story happens in like the Ming Dynasty, right? So, anyway, they believed that there was all this big, literally, there was like a bureaucracy of heaven, quote, quote. And so, it's interesting to, for me, picking out where the animism starts, and then the Taoism, and the Confucianism, and the Buddhism, and the Hinduism start. That's a very interesting thing for me. So, anyway. The monkey gamboled over the mountains, eating grass, drinking from streams, picking mountain flowers, hunting for fruit. He kept company with wolves and snakes, tigers and panthers, befriended deer and antelope, and swore brotherhood with macaques and apes. At night, he slept below cliffs. At sunrise, he wandered through mountains and caves with no sense of the passing of time. One sweltering morning, he sheltered from the heat with a crowd of monkeys in the shade of some pines. They swung from branch to branch, built sand pagodas, and chased dragonflies and lizards. Afterward, bathing in a mountain stream, they noticed how its current seemed to tumble like rolling melons and wondered where it was coming from. As we don't have anything particular to do today, one of them suggested, let's follow the stream to its origin. With shrieks of happy agreement, they all scrambled up the mountain to a great curtain of a waterfall. The monkeys clapped their hands in delight. Whoever dares pass through the waterfall to discover the source of the water and returns alive can be our king. After 3 calls for a volunteer, the stone monkey suddenly jumped out of the crowd. I'll go. This excellent monkey closed his eyes, crouched, then sprang with one bound through the sheet of water. Once on the other side, he opened his eyes. Before him was a gleaming iron bridge, under which flowed the source of the stream. From the bridge, he could see into a beautiful cave residence, cushioned with moss, hung with stalactites, furnished with carved benches and beds, and equipped with pans and stoves. In the middle of the bridge hung a stone tablet on which was written in large regular calligraphy the following address: Heavenly Water Curtain Cave, the blessed land of flower fruit mountain. The stone monkey leaped back out through the waterfall. Fantastic luck, he whooped. What's it like inside? The other monkeys crowded around to ask. How deep is the water? It's the perfect place for us to make our home. An ideal refuge from heaven's fits of temper, explained the stone monkey, and described the wonders of Water Curtain Cave. It could easily hold thousands of us. Let's move in straight away. You go first, and we'll follow behind, yelped the others. Once more, the stone monkey crouched, shut his eyes, and sprang through the water. Come on, he called. The braver of the monkeys immediately followed. The more nervous ones tweaked their ears, scratched their cheeks, stretched, and chattered a good deal before eventually leaping onto the bridge and into the cave. Once there, they were soon snatching at bowls, fighting over stoves and beds, and dragging things back and forth. For such is the mischief of monkeys, there was not a moment's peace until they'd fretted themselves into exhaustion. I'm thinking about how there was that scene in the Tarzan movie, the animated Tarzan from back in the day, where St. Phil Collins burned it up just for us. He's like Dale Earnhardt for the piano, you know. Anyhow, there's another thing here. This is a thing in China, and it may still be going on a little bit, but these people are probably like holdouts. Now, I might be wrong, and maybe it's propaganda, but that this doesn't happen so much. But it used to be a style of life in China. The people would make these, we wouldn't call it a very sturdy house, but you'd make it, but it would be inside of this big ass cave. So what they're talking about here, these monkeys just finding a cave that's got pots and pans and stuff in it and beds and all this, is not really out of the question. It's not out of the... Yeah, it is that it's on this magic mountain and yada, 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 all that. But, but yeah, it's not out of the question in China. For us, that's very weird. It's very weird. But we haven't had that kind of landscape and rivers. See, that's good real estate in China. In certain parts of China, you got you a mountain cave that people can have. You can have multiple houses in, maybe, because they're talking about all these monkeys are fighting over beds plural. So this is one of these large cave residences. And so your extended family can stay up here in this cave thing. And then when the Yellow River or whatever floods its banks, you don't have so much to worry about. Unless it takes the mountain out from underneath of you or something like that. Like the side of the mountain falls off or it gets way up that high. Anyhow, just wanted to let you know about that. Anyhow. Now, there was not a moment's peace until they'd fretted themselves into exhaustion. The stone monkey spoke again. A monkey stands and falls by his word. You promised that whoever dared pass through the waterfall and return safely would be king. So what are you waiting for? Without a murmur of dissent, the monkeys immediately bowed and wished their new king a long, long life. Their new ruler quickly dropped his old name, Stone Monkey, in favor of Beautiful Monkey King, and appointed a few of the monkeys to ministerial and civil service positions. The monkeys then devoted themselves to exploring the delights of Flower Fruit Mountain by day and returning to Water Curtain Cave at night. The beautiful Monkey King lived this happy, innocent life for somewhere between 300 and 400 years. Then one day, While banqueting with the other monkeys, he suddenly became melancholy and began to weep. "What has upset our great king?" clamored the others. "I fear for the future," the Monkey King exclaimed with a sigh. "But we live in bliss," said his subjects, laughing. "Slaves of neither the unicorn, the phoenix, nor man. Why are you worrying about the future?" "Well, life is good now," the Monkey King said, "but eventually we will grow old and fall into the clutches of Yama, king of the underworld." While the monkey masses, instantly fearful. Okay, guys, I'm not sure here why exactly the monkeys and Monkey King are living for 300 years in the first place. I'm guessing it's the influence of the mountain or something, the magicality of the mountain. They are not that clear on this, and I'm sure they probably aren't very clear on it in the original text because they weren't very clear on it. Anyhow, we're just going to assume that this is a magic mountain. And so these lesser monkeys, I wondered about that. Like, is Monkey just not being mindful that the others are dying? You know? But we live in bliss, said his subjects, laughing. "Slaves of neither the unicorn, the phoenix, nor man. Why are you worrying about the future? You see? Life is good now," the Monkey King said, "but eventually we will grow old and fall into the clutches of Yama, king of the underworld." While the monkey masses, instantly fearful, buried their faces in their hands and mewed piteously, a long-armed ape jumped out of the crowd. "Our great king's new sense of mortality suggests the beginnings of a religious calling. Only 3 types of creature can escape King Yama and his wheel of life and death: Buddhas, immortals, and holy sages." "Where are they to be found?" asked the Monkey King. "In ancient caves on divine mountains." "I'll leave immediately," declared the Monkey King. "Even if my quest takes me to the very end of the world, I will return with the secret of eternal life." All the monkeys applauded wildly. "Marvelous! First, though, we will gather fruits from far away for a huge send-off feast." The next day was taken up with preparing and consuming this banquet. An extraordinary spread of plums, cherries, lychees, pears, dates, peaches, strawberries, almonds, walnuts, chestnuts, hazelnuts, tangerines, sugar cane, persimmons, and pomegranates, and coconut, and grape wine. The Monkey King sat at the head of the tables, with the subjects approaching in turn, in strict order of age and rank, to toast him with wine, flowers, and fruit. The following day, the Monkey King rose early. "Make me a dry pine wood raft, little monkeys, and fetch me a bamboo pole and some fruit for the journey," When all was ready, he hopped onto the raft and, pushing off with all his might, set off across the ocean. He was in luck, for a strong southeasterly wind blew him directly to the northeast coast of the southern continent. When his bamboo pole told him he was in shallower water, he abandoned the raft for the shoreline, where he encountered humans hunting for fish, wild geese, clams, and dredging salt. He ran at them, making strange faces, and they dropped their baskets and nets and scattered in terror. The Monkey King grabbed the slowest of them and stripped him of his clothes. After dressing in them, Monkey made a tour of the continent's towns and cities, studying human manners and speech. 8 or 9 years passed. Monkey remained determined to seek the formula for eternal life, while the humans who surrounded him sought only money and fame, without a thought for their own mortality. No one cared what became of him. Eventually, Monkey came to the Western Ocean. Still in search of immortals, he built himself another raft and floated across to the western continent. In time, he approached a beautiful, jagged mountain, thickly forested at its base and luxuriant with flowers. Okay, guys, I'm going to come right off here. There's a thing about the way ancient Chinese people conceived the world, and it's very strange, okay? Like, I think the compass is backwards, and like Mount Everest is the middle, or something like that. I might be wrong. I'm probably wrong. But there's like a thing where also the world gets smaller as we go, you know. So what they're talking about, that he crossed an ocean and then walked through towns and cities and stuff, and then came to the Western Ocean. So maybe he was at one arm of a bay, or a place that had a bay, and then he sailed a boat across an ocean and then reached a bay, and then and reached their side of the bay, and then kept on walking until he reached, quote, quote, the Western Ocean. And to us, that would be, you know, like that thing that San Francisco is across or something, but or the thing between, like the distance between the Alaska and Russia, kind of like that. But yeah, maybe this describes like Hong Kong, the Hong Kong area. But then also, it's just a story. There is that about ancient China, even back then. And this is the 1500s too. This was written in like 1500 something. So, Galileo, long time. Yeah, they've had firecrackers for a long time in China. Yeah. guys. But yeah, in case you're trying to put the world onto, to make this world make sense, maybe it doesn't. Until there's this whole thing about going to India for the scriptures, maybe that'll make more sense. But until then, good luck, pal. Because I'm not that adept at like Chinese cosmology. But just safe to say, this could sort of map on to areas that are in real China, but then also people in real China back then were capable of, they weren't such keyboard warriors about everything. It was nice to have a book. A book existed. Alright. Eventually, Monkey came to the Western Ocean. Still in search of immortals, he built himself another raft and floated across to the Western continent. In time, he approached a beautiful, jagged mountain, thickly forested at its base, and luxuriant with flowers, grasses, mosses, bamboo, and pines. An ideal hermit's refuge. Let me see here. Yeah, I flipped back to the map here, and yeah, guys, it's kind of like what I was saying there. The mythical conception of China is in action. Action. Like, LI might not even be real. Whatever. Let's roll. Chopsticks. An ideal hermit's refuge. Unconcerned about the danger of wolves, snakes, tigers, or leopards, Monkey climbed up to look around. When he reached the top, he suddenly heard a human voice singing deep within a copse of trees. I sleep till dawn, then wander the wood, cutting creepers for my livelihood. When I've gathered as much as I can hold, I stroll singing through the market till it's sold. I trade my load for wine and rice, and never haggle o'er the price. Living without ambition or conceit, only immortals and Taoists will I meet. Do you like that? I made that up just now. Like the tune. I mean, I didn't. That was already in the book, but that tune wasn't in the book. Your boy, right here, got bars. Bars. At last, the Monkey King rejoiced to himself. Skipping through the forest, he came face to face with a woodcutter busy at work, dressed in a large conical hat made of young bamboo, a cotton gauze tunic with a silk sash, and straw sandals. "Salutations, immortal!" Monkey hailed him. The flustered woodcutter dropped his axe. "Hush! I'm a poor, ignorant man, unable even to feed or clothe myself." "Why then do you sing about immortals?" Monkey asked him. The woodcutter laughed. "Oh, that. A neighbor of mine, an immortal as it happens, taught a song to me to cheer me up when life was getting me down. A moment ago I started worrying about something, so I sang it. I didn't know anyone was listening." "Why don't you become his disciple? You could learn the secret of eternal life." "I've not had an easy life," the woodcutter explained. "My father died when I was 7 or 8. I'm an only child, and have been my mother's sole support ever since. And now that she's getting old, she needs me all the more. All we have is the rice and tea I get in exchange for my firewood. I can't abandon her for a religious life." "Well, I'm sure you will be rewarded in later life for your filial devotion. In the meantime, though, could you point the way to the immortal's house so that I could pay him a visit?" "It's not far. This is Heart and Soul Mountain, about 7 or 8 miles to the south. You'll come to the cave of the tilted moon and 3 stars, the home of an immortal called Subodhi, who has trained many disciples and currently has 30 or 40 studying under him." Okay, now, this is Subodhi. Subodhi, as you see him in some things, he's basically like Peter or something. He's like the one, like when Buddha's lecturing, Buddha will be giving a lecture, and then Subodhi will bear his shoulder. And I guess in that culture it means it's like raising your hand or something. Maybe it's like raising your hand. In American classrooms, how you have to raise your hand to get the teacher to answer you. I don't know, but it's a little kinky to me. A little weird, but whatever. I guess when you do, I don't know, whatever. It just got a little weird after I read. I was like, "Say Subodhi bared his shoulder one more time. Beep, beep, beep." You know, I was like Samuel L. Jackson in Pulp Fiction. I don't know. It was a little weird. You could just speak up. But anyway, yeah, I'm pretty sure he's basically like Buddha's #1 disciple dude or whatever. Like the Hermione Granger in Professor McGonagall's class or something, you know? That kind of thing. Flitwick's class, who knows? But get on with it. Not daring to knock, Monkey loitered on a nearby pine, nibbling some nuts. After a very short while, the door creaked open, and a young immortal of exceptionally refined looks emerged. He wore a robe with loose, billowing sleeves. His hair was bound with silk cords. "Who's making all that noise?" Jumping down from the tree, Monkey bowed. "I didn't mean to disturb you. I'm here to learn the secret of eternal life. You seek the way, you say." Okay, now that's the way with a capital W. And when it's said like that in this context, it's not like when you're reading a Zen manual and you see the way. That's different. Maybe, depending on who you're talking to, but in reality, it's different. This is like the Taoist way with a capital W, where you do all this Taoist stuff that includes a bunch of stuff from Buddhism and all and stuff, and then you can like learn magic powers, like all that. If you've ever watched a crazy kung fu movie or Dragon Ball Z or whatever, them guys aren't really making much up. I am not joking you. This stuff, they're going from an old playbook. Like they wish they were as ignorant about stuff. Some of them probably grow up not reading this stuff on deliberate, because they'll actually be able to make it up. Somebody will be like, "Did you know that was in such and such? That's in such and such novel from the 1600s." And they'll be like, "Well, you know what? That good for that novel, but it's 2026 and I came up with it yesterday on the toilet." Okay? Because yeah, these guys were laser beams and flying. All that stuff is old business. Like, no joke, there's a thing about, like, I read an old story where Shiva, the god Shiva, got mad at somebody, and his forehead opens up, and fire shoots out, and he incinerates that guy, put him back in the spin cycle, according to that religion. Try again. Ain't that crazy? So yeah, they're not, and that's just one. I'm sure there's piles and piles, and if I thought there would be like more, and it's not just limited to the Taoist stuff or nothing like that. That Padmasambhava guy from Tibetan Buddhism, he like rode around on a tiger. No joke, insane crap, like a flying tiger. So you're gonna see stuff here, and you're gonna be like, "Hey, that's Dragon Ball Z, or that's such anime," or "Hey, that sounds like the X-Men," or yada yada yada. There's the X-Men with that power. No, there's the Monkey King's powers. Yeah. It's all about, it's mindfulness, kind of. It's deorientalizing things. Yeah, it's really sad. Okay, I gotta quit. It's only page 7. Alright, so this is the Taoist way. Not like the Zen Buddhism way where you preferences cast aside and this and that and this and that. No, there's like elaborate stuff. Like it's like 72 transformations and this and that and your yin chi and your yang chi and lots of stuff. Lots of stuff. You seek the way, you say. The young man smiled. Our master just told me to look outside the front door for a new student. Well, that would be me, exclaimed Monkey. Come on, then, the young man said, ushering him inside. Monkey followed the youth deep into the cave. Past story upon story, and row upon row of jeweled pavilions, towers and arches. This is a big cave. And towers and arches. Until they reached the foot of a jade platform, on top of which sat Subodhi, the famous patriarch of the West. 30 trainee immortals sat on the ground below. Master! Monkey gasped, launching into a frenzy of kowtows. Tell me your name and where you're from, Subodhi asked, before you smash your head beyond repair. I come from Water Curtain Cave on Flower Fruit Mountain in the land of Owli on the eastern continent. Throw him out, Subodhi roared. Lars can't learn enlightenment. 2 oceans and the southern continent lie between here and Owli. Monkey resumed his kowtowing, this time at double speed. It's true, he protested. My journey here took more than 10 years. Humph, conceded Subodhi. That sounds about right. So what's your name? Who were your parents? I have no parents, Monkey replied. Were you born from a tree, then? All I can remember is an immortal rock on Flower Fruit Mountain. One year, split open, and there I was. I see, considered Subodhi, hiding his delight at this revelation. So you were born of heaven and earth. Get up and walk about so I can look at you. Monkey scampered this way and that. You're not exactly classically handsome, Subodhi said, laughing. But you look exactly as a monkey reared on fruit and nuts ought to. I'll give you a surname. Sun, or Sun. Written one way, it means monkey. But I'll drop the animal radical, leaving us with the sun that means child. I guess I should say soon. Leaving us with the soon that means child. Monkey burbled with glee. A surname. I've got a surname. But can I have a given name also? So that you can easily call me hither and thither? The given names of my disciples rotate within a cycle of 12 characters. And those 12 characters are broad, Guang, great, Da, wise, Ji, intelligent, Hui, true, Zhen, obedient, Ru, of nature, Xing, of the sea, Hai, outstanding, Ying, awoken, Wu, rounded, Yuan, enlightened, Jue, or Jue. That word J-U-E. So, Jue. Awesome. As you fall into the 10th, awoken, Wu, I will call you Sun. I will call you Sun Wukong. Sun, who is awoken to emptiness. Happy with that? Sun Wukong. Monkey chortled. I love it. The name spoke an important truth. For at the beginning of everything, there were no names, only emptiness. To advance from emptiness, living creatures must first become aware of it. And if you wish to know what Monkey learned next, you must read on. Okay, thank you guys. I was dubious about doing this one since it's like a translation, quote. Like I wanted to get a copy of Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. That book was a big deal to me. I read it in high school before I got into the Yoga Sutra of Patanjali some years later. But that and I was still up in the Bible there. That was, I don't know if our librarian people, the people over the library knew that book was in there or whatever, but I got to looking in the bookstore, the local bookstore. I was trying to shop local for the books and for the show materials, and I was like, oh, Siddhartha. I was looking and I was thinking about buying it, and then I looked and there's a translation by somebody else. And I was like, well, this is complicated and awkward. Trying to remember what translation I read when I was growing up. How many of them are there out there? I'm going to have to look into this, But from what I gather, this one... this whole thing about it being a translation may be slightly convenient for us, especially as English speakers, because like there's turns of phrases and things maybe that we wouldn't quite understand if we weren't, because we're English speakers. Like, does the toot fruit, does a Chinese person understand that we're talking about beans? if I go into the Chinese restaurant and the Chinese guys order there, and I was like, give me your toot fruit cake. I want it home style. Does he know that I want tofu? No, he does not know that. But now there's an American guy that works at this local China restaurant, and he might understand when I say a toot fruit cake, that I want tofu. Because tofu is made from beans, which, as we all know, are musical fruit. Because you eat them and then you toot. But see, we're not all that guy that works at the Chinese restaurant that can just kind of wander into alleys that we shouldn't in Chinatown. He can just get half drunk and just toddle his big self all around Chinatown if he wants. We don't really have that luxury because we aren't him. And so I'm interested in seeing how this goes. Maybe later on in the future we find a more in-depth translation or something like that. You know, that contains a lot of these little songs or whatever, and I get to improv some songs or whatever. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I learn Chinese and I just read it in the original. Thank you, guys.